What's up, guys? This is Zero, and we're doing another episode of Holy Shit, Travis, you need to put headphones on.
Fuck you, kid.
I can hear myself talking.
Yeah, leave it in. Just leave it in. Just keep it rolling.
I don't have a choice at this point. I don't care anymore. Well,
all
right. What's up, guys? This is Zero. We're doing another episode of AbsoluteZero, and today we have a couple of topics that we can talk about. I was going to do an MMO series, but the person I was going to have with the series decided not to get a hold of me in time, so we're stuck with Travis and John again.
Hi, guys.
As usual. So I guess our first topic is I was thinking about it. I was playing one of my new favorite games is Rust, and Travis is grundling his mic right now, so that's beautiful.
Hi,
Thank
guys.
you. Yeah. So what I wanted to talk about, I mean, like I said, I was playing Rust, and I was starting to think about how Perma-Death affects games nowadays. But in Rust, when you die, and obviously you respawn, but you lose everything that was on your body. So there's no progression there unless you store it in some other way. Not you can always lose your gear because it's a persistent world, so people can raid you, they can take all your stuff, so you can get back to square one as soon as you lose the ability to protect your base or whatever. And I think that's kind of like a good way to turn games towards that direction because I feel like it's kind of rewarding. So I just wanted to talk about how Permadeath has its ups and its downs, and I want to know what you guys think about it. So go, talk.
Well, personally, I mean, I like the idea, but at the same time, from me, I suck at it. You know, Andy, as you well know.
You suck at Rust, is what you're saying.
Exactly. I suck at it. But at the same time, I think it's fun, you know.
I think that video games are getting too easy. I mean, it's a great medium for having like some kind of entertainment, but back in the day, I'm sure John knows this, games were fucking hard.
Yeah.
Like, it was brutal. It was, I mean, I remember playing Crash Bandicoot. I could not beat this level.
Crash Bandicoot, I was thinking further than that.
Crash Bandicoot's my first game.
There's a reason games were harder. There's a few reasons games were harder back in the day. Very specific reasons, especially in the really early days of home consoles. I'm talking 8-bit, Atari, Nintendo. The reason that they were so hard is because video games evolved largely out of the arcades. That's where the first video games, commercial video games anyway, were. And in the arcades, it was very advantageous for both game makers, game manufacturers, and arcade owners to have games be difficult because you're eating quarters. So the harder the game is,
a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, the harder the game is, the more quarters that you get from players because they keep dying and they want to keep going. So when they made the transition to
more casual gaming,
when they made the transition to home consoles, they hadn't worked out all those kinks yet, so the early games were still very hard, but there was another reason that they continued being hard even when more non-arcade experiences started being developed, and that was because game memory limitations were very severe. You didn't have infinite or virtually infinite space like you can have in today's games. You know, space was at a premium, so games weren't very long, so they needed to justify that $50 price tag, because $50 back in the 80s was like $100 today. So
right.
In order to do that, they had to make them hard, so you keep playing over and over again to extend that experience.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, God, what was it? Boulder something, the Crash Bandicoot thing, we were being chased by a boulder. Oh my, I died so many times, but eventually you beat it, you know. But there's my most recent experience with a game where Permadeath really kind of shocked me. I was like, I wasn't expecting it. It was FTL. It's like that little indie platformer 2D space simulator game. I was playing it. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool, and I'm playing along, and then all of a sudden I died, and then it said game over, and I was like, whoa, I just spent an hour on this, and now it's all gone.
Yeah.
Like, there's no progression for it whatsoever. I was in shock. I was like, oh my god, what the hell?
Yeah.
I had no idea what to think, and I was like, and then I kept playing it, and I was like, this is kind of cool, and it made me think about the decisions I was making. I was like, I'm not gonna take this lightly. If I take this detour, I could very well lose the whole thing. Like, and it
Right.
changed my perspective of what upgrades to get and what not to do.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen too many, or I personally haven't played too many games like that. I mean, I've only played I think maybe like one or two games where it's where the whole game's not permadeath, but where you have the option as a character's permadeath.
That was another thing I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, where the character's
Hardcore
permadeath.
mode is what they call it for
That's what it was,
RPGs.
Diablo 3 has a hardcore mode where it's permadeath, and I tried that on one of the characters. And
See how far you can make it without dying.
Exactly.
Right?
And
It's like 3 feet.
Exactly. It's like fuck.
Yeah. So I had a friend that really liked it, and he was playing what do you call it? Oh man, Path of Exile in hardcore. I was like, I mean, it's kind of cool, but I never played it. He was like, oh no, it's the only way you have to play. All pros play in hardcore mode. I was like, okay, but he's like, there's no risk, there's no reward. So
exactly.
There's also another thing that is interesting. It's not just maybe an RPG character, but I played the XCOM series where you had units when they died, they were dead.
Right.
Like, and they would go into a hall of memory or whatever. Yep.
Yeah.
And,
there's that whole concept. Both what you guys are talking about in using modern games as examples is a really, really old idea, and I'm talking like super old. Because when we're talking about permadeath, we have to talk about roguelikes, which are named after a game called Rogue that came out in 1980.
What was the game about?
It was a computer game. It was a single-player, single-character dungeon crawler, essentially, using ASCII graphics. So your character is an @ symbol, and which is common in these kind of roguelike games. NetHack is another popular one. Now, Diablo, the whole series, is a descendant of that style of game, and FTL is an example of a modern roguelike as well. And this concept of death as a learning mechanic. The whole idea is that you're going to die a lot, so you got to get used to it. And the idea is that every time you play, you learn a little something more that helps you in the next playthrough, and you build on those experiences. It is challenging. There's a lot of random elements, too, in these games. There's a lot of procedural generation. You don't know what's going to happen necessarily each playthrough. Helps keep it fresh, but there's certain patterns that you notice over time, and you learn more about.
It's actually an interesting, what do you call it, like, idea that I wish they would bring back.
Well, they are bringing back in a big
a lot
way.
of new games are starting to have.
Rogue Legacy is another popular one. I'm a big fan of Rogue Legacy. It melds the idea of the roguelike with a platforming hack and slash game.
When did that come out?
That came out, I think it was like last year or whatever.
Really?
Yeah, it's really good. I highly recommend it. I played through the game. It's really great.
I'll have to take a look at it. Some of the other games that have this permadeath thing that you all probably know of, DayZ has it. The game Rust that I've been playing. Nether has it too, which is kind of like a DayZ clone, kind of, but has its own twist to it. And then, like I mentioned, FTL has it as well. I'm sure there's more games, including the hardcore mode. But also, I mean, XCOM, when you lost your characters and they were dead, it was like you went into battle. You were like, dude, I got to keep this guy in the back. I don't want him to die. He's so cool.
Again, that's a common feature with tactical RPGs and beyond. Like a game like Tactics Ogre, Final Fantasy Tactics, these old grid-based tactical RPGs. If you don't revive the character in a certain number of turns, they're gone. That can have a real effect. You get attached to the character sometimes for storyline reasons, but you also get attached because if you lose a powerful character, it can really screw you. You lost the character Orlando as he's in the remake version of Final Fantasy Tactics. He's kind of like an Obi-Wan character, but he's probably the most powerful character in the game. And the first time I played through Final Fantasy Tactics, I lost him in battle, and it really sucked. And I basically started over because that character is worth, keeping around.
That makes a lot of sense. What was I going to say? There was was it? I don't know. Some takeover. I can't. I was trying to remember something I was going to say about it.
But I was going to ask you, Andy, about not to get too far off subject, but DayZ's because I think you were mentioning something about Daisy is kind of like, or Rust is kind of like a spinoff of Rust, or no, Rust is kind of like a spinoff of Daisy.
Rust takes elements from DayZ and a lot of other games. They say it straight on their website, like this is heavily influenced by our love for these games, and this is why we made this game.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, there was also I remember now. I had just done a review, as you guys know, of the Brothers in Arms series for my back in the day playlist, and when in Earned in Blood, if your guys died, you had the option to say yes, this was earned in blood, or no, revive the character. So you had the option to leave the character dead, and if you played through that way, it would affect the gameplay. So
Yeah, sometimes they try to give you those options. Like in the older games, what they would do is they would delete your save file upon your character's death, or your party's death in some games like Wizardry, so these earlier dungeon crawling RPGs. And there's a way around that. You could, if you know, weren't sure about the next place you were going to, you would have to actually back up the save file in some other location. So when the game deleted, you could swap it back into the folder. It was called Save
Yeah.
Stuff. Nowadays, they kind of, death is more of a slap on the wrist in a lot of modern games like this. In Rogue Legacy, in, you know, it's using a rapid fire kind of thing. You die, okay, you keep going, you know, with a new character, boom, 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 boom. It can actually be used for comedy purposes, too, in some of these games. But in other games, you can lose a hell of a lot of like Dwarf Fortress is another good example. I don't know if you've played Dwarf Fortress at all.
I've had friends that tried to get me into it.
It's super. The learning curve is like ridiculously steep. Is
it worse than EVE Online?
No,
oh
nothing's
yeah,
worse
actually
than
no,
EVE
it is.
No way.
Because
No,
at least EVE
not
Online
awesome.
has is an interface that you can navigate as a human being. Dwarf Fortress is designed for machines because it's the most obtuse, illogical way that you can control a game imaginable. Everything is keyboard. There's no mouse input whatsoever, and none of the keys make sense, and they're all discrete and they're all context sensitive in different areas. Like you have to memorize what all these keys do, and it's again it's an ASCII graphics, or you have the option of tile sets too to make it a little bit more intuitive. But you're looking at like letters arranged in different patterns and just memorizing which keys to hit.
Because this is the first I've heard of anything being worse than EVE in terms of learning curve.
At least EVE is a modern game that was a relatively modern game. You know, this is like Dwarf Fortress like exists in this hypothetical universe where graphics technology never advanced, but processing speed did. So like it's super complex, and there's a million different like variables in there, and it like generates entire centuries worth of history and geology, and you know, the dwarves have their own like psychological problems. You know, you're basically managing a bunch of bipolar alcoholics, is how some people describe Dwarf Fortress, and like it's the most complicated game I've ever played. But it has these roguelike elements where you can lose not just a character, but the entire civilization can go. You can unleash some unspeakable ancient evil like a Balrog, you know, from the depths of the earth and completely wipe out your fortress. Just all sorts of crazy things can happen to you. But
Nice.
Incredible.
But yeah, so also death as almost something that's an inconvenience at this point. Like in Call of Duty, it's so much more of a cinematic experience that death is actually just a kind of an inconvenience. So like, this is stupid. Why did I die? I can't see what happens next.
Yeah.
So you get frustrated over it, and you're like, I just want to see what happens. It's more of a movie than anything else.
Yeah, but Perma-Death actually turns death into a game mechanic, so it feels less frustrating as a result. But in multiplayer games, it's a different animal altogether, because if somebody actually kills your character, they've robbed you of, and MMOs, you know, they're a huge time sink, and also sometimes a huge money sink. So if you've invested a lot and somebody else takes it from you, that's a completely different kind of beast.
I guess that's why in Rust, when you die, you lose the stuff that's on you, but as long as you have like your base and your stuff's backed up, it's not a huge loss.
Yeah.
But it is still a loss, and so it makes you not want to die.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, if you look at it this way, if it's like a free-to-play type deal, and you know, meaning if you die and you lose that character's just done, and you can't log back into that server, well, let me start again. If you start a character and you get all the way to say level, like say 30, and you die, you lose all your gear, all your, you know, everything you've worked up to that point, and you lose all that, and you're done. then what's the point of even playing? But like in Rust, if you die, you lose all your stuff on
Right,
you.
so the lack of progression and the ability to lose everything really sucks, as opposed to be like, oh, well, I lost some things. I didn't
Exactly.
lose all 10 hours of gameplay. At least I have some stuff back at my base. So, yeah, no,
Exactly.
I understand if you sink 12 plus hours into a character and then it dies, it's going to suck.
Exactly. At least in Rust, like say if you learn how to say like make weapons, armor,
You,
like learn how to
you
make a
retain
base.
that knowledge.
Exactly. It's not like you've
It would suck to have to
lost.
start over from scratch every time. Although it would be
Exactly.
interesting to see how well people will be able to handle that, because it would be very difficult to advance.
Exactly. Because if
Because
that
you
was the
spend
case,
hours farming that stuff to get the knowledge to learn how to make C4 or whatever. So if
exactly.
you die, no, everyone's going to be just throwing rocks at each other.
Exactly.
Like the
'Cause
one guy with an M4 is going to have like a huge
Yeah.
advantage over
There's
everybody.
a very
Exactly.
delicate balance between frustration and fun in games, and a good game designer has to know how to strike that balance.
Exactly. Because I mean, if games like that nowadays, like like MMOs, I wouldn't even bother playing them. In all honesty, I'd say screw it. I'm
But
done.
I mean, in the end, when the next MMO comes out, you did just waste years on that game. Like that's what happened with me in WoW. When I was playing WoW, I sunk so many hours into it, and to the point I realized I was like, this isn't. I mean, it was fun, and that's what I got out of
Yeah.
it, and that's the whole point of the game. And you can't think of like,
Exactly.
oh, I'm gonna lose this character because the next game is coming out, so I wasted all
Exactly.
that time. You didn't waste all that time.
No.
You enjoyed the time that you had with the
Pay for an
character.
experience, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's the point. So you can't look at it like, oh, I have like 600 hours on that character and I just lost it because this game's irrelevant now. So I'm just gonna play the
Yeah.
next one. So
Yeah, I mean, if you have that kind of, it's like why are you playing the game to begin with if you didn't enjoy the time playing?
Exactly.
that's what WoW happened. Like I started to not enjoy the time I was playing with it.
I
No,
never
just
enjoyed WoW. I never enjoyed it. I
me
thought
and Travis had a blast
played,
with WoW for a long time.
I've played much better. I don't even like MMOs that much, but I've still played better MMOs than WoW. I mean, I just never. It just seems really. I know it's like it's been around for 10 years, but going into it in a few years into its run and it being very clunky in comparison to a lot of even free-to-play games I was seeing was just like it's very generic, very limited customization options for your characters.
Have you seen WildStar yet?
No, I haven't. But
You should
Yeah.
check out the WildStar. The customization stuff is insane.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm really
I mean-
looking forward to No Man's Sky more than any other game right now. I think.
I've never heard of it. What is that?
Oh man, this is a game I've been waiting for by everything I've heard about it. They've just pretty much I haven't read anything about it for a little while now, but a few months ago made a big splash. There was some video game award show. It was a stupid show. I forget what it was, but I don't remember the name of it. But they debuted this trailer. Basically, it's a sci-fi game, but it's completely like free roaming and open world, but more than open world, it's like open like galaxy. Like it's as far as I can tell, it's first person. At least the trailer was. I don't know if there's going to be a third person option, but the whole idea is that you can be on foot exploring planets, jump in your ship, and just kind of explore. Like there's no like loading screen. Like you go from just like landing.
Maybe I have heard of this. Is this the company that had that flood?
Yes, exactly. It's like a four-man
Okay,
team.
yes, I remember that. And then I think one of the same company offered assistance to them. I forget who it was.
Wait, what's this called again?
No Man's Sky. And it was great because
Microsoft Studios offered help. Yeah.
I don't know. Well, the thing is, like, it's like a format, and they're doing this all with procedural generation. So it's randomly generated material. That's why they can have these huge scopes. But, like, the trailer looked amazing. Visually, the game looks very interesting, and it's fully modern 3D and all of that. And what was great about these developers is even when they had that flood, they're like, we're just sitting on each other's laps, we'll finish the game. We're not even going to do a Kickstarter. We're not going to take, we're not going to go that route. Like, you got to have a lot of respect for that.
Nice.
Yeah.
And it just seems like this game, like a super open world, like where you can discover new planets, new forms of life on them, and that it's not like going to be quite an MMO, but the way I think it's going to be is like similar to Spore was, where there's like it's not an MMO, but like you get like things that other
Character
players
data
do,
from other players.
or like if another player discovers a planet, that planet has been discovered. You can go to that planet then, and it'll have like whatever name it has. And
Okay.
So it's
however
gonna
it's
be
set
like-
up.
so
But
it's
it
something
also
taking
has that
this-
permadeath concept that we've been talking about. in
It
the sense that,
does.
yeah, like instead of your character dying, it's like your ship. You lose your ship, but your ship contains so much of what you need as a character that it's still a severe kind of setback.
So it sounds like
So
it's
if
like
you lost your ship, could you still survive as a character?
Yeah, I guess that's the idea. You start over, I guess, in a new ship, as far as I understand, but your ship
so it
continues
sounds
like
like it's
real
like
life.
a discovery, like a discovery
Yeah. There's elements of that too,
exploration.
which I'm a big fan of, and a lot of the games are playing around with that. You have games like Proteus and obviously Minecraft and Cube World and all Terraria and all of that.
Nice.
Minecraft has an element of permadeath, in it, but not
Yeah,
permadeath. Like if you die and you don't know where you are, you lose everything you had on you.
yeah.
So there is that challenge to it. So I think what we just wanted to get out of this episode today was what permadeath is doing in this new game culture and how it affects everyone and how we want to play our games. And I think it's good that it's finally making a comeback. And it adds a more rewarding gameplay, I think, if you can survive and not die.
Nice.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's good for sure. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Absolute Zero. I'm sure we'll have some more things to talk about. If you have any suggestions as to what we're going to talk about next week, sure, pop it in the comments below. And thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next episode.